Oh, he's a Star Trek. I love it. Okay. We all live? All right. Good evening. Welcome to the workshop for the school board tonight, Thursday, September 17th. May I please have the attendance?
Sure. Mrs. Durgan? Mrs. Giftos?
Here.
Dr. Gill?
Here.
Ms. Casalonis?
Here.
Ms. Layton? Here. Mrs. Seither?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
And Mr. Bennett?
Here.
If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Tonight is a workshop all about sports and activities. Mr. Legage, thank you so much for being willing to come and talk to us about the modifications, the guidelines, and how our athletes will be able to have a fall season.
All right, thank you. You can go to that first slide, I guess. I'll follow along there. So this just kind of lays out the timeline of things, just to kind of recap of where we're at right now. And you can you all set? Yep. Thank you, sorry. You can go to the next one. This begins to get a little bit, wow, that is loud. I know I have a big voice, but that is loud. So this begins here to kind of, fetch out all the details of how we're getting to where we got to. And of course, if you followed it in the newspaper, you would see all this, all these things. So, and in the different departments that had to work on it through the governor's office. So, if you want to keep rolling, and the next one, and then this was where things finally were decided. So, after it. After discussions about athletics and what we're going to do this fall, the executive director and the associate executive director of the MPA met with those different departments, government departments, and decided on what each sport was going to look like. So every sport has sport guidelines, and those sport guidelines are really what governs that sport for that season. It's kind of the rules for the sport for that season. So if you remember last time, I mentioned that the rules that we have to follow are really the MPA rules, and it's within those sports season guidelines. And so that's what the work of that particular group was doing. So it was members of the Department of Education and all those different government groups, and then the MPA. And then they ended up coming out with this document, this statement, and a quite lengthy document that laid out that we're not going to do tackle football, we're not going to do indoor volleyball, and we are going to do these other activities with modifications. And every sport had some modification to it. However, they did allow us we could do football, strength and conditioning, skill work, those sorts of things. And we were allowed to do what they call a 7-on-7 league. So the best way to describe that is think of like touch football. It's essentially that, a flag football. It's essentially that, like a high school version of that. They call it 7-on-7. The football programs every summer run a 7-on-7 league in the summer times as a conditioning sort of thing. And so this was just a kind of amped up version of that. So they're going to allow that, and they're going to allow volleyball and even volleyball games within your county if you play outdoors. So we were able to have all the equipment lined up, and volleyball started Monday. Everything started Monday. So we're fast approaching the end of our first week of doing everything. So I think we can keep rolling here. I will say that the SMAA, which is made up of the 17 schools in southern Maine, it has York County schools and Cumberland County schools. So when York County went to yellow, all the schedules had to be redone again because Cumberland County schools can't play York County schools, because in athletic world, yellow equals red. So if we go into yellow, athletics is over until the next 2-week designation time. So that's what's happened in York County right now. Because you probably read that in the paper. It was as a result of a number of things, but all of York County is in the yellow right now. So they're not able to do anything, which is half of our league. So they had to redo all the schedules again. So all the teams that we're playing are all Cumberland County schools. It's still the same plan, as I mentioned before, 8 games for soccer and field hockey and those things. We can go up until November 14th. It's cold. It gets dark early. We're going to have to see how that goes, but we're able to go up through November 14th with the fall season. So it ended up for us, if we don't go into the yellow and have any type of stoppage, it will end up being a 9-week season, which frankly is not that far off from a normal season, which is 11 to 12 weeks. This was a statement about spectators in that we included in all the materials that went out, but we have to still keep within that 100 people at an event. And so we use probably with all the game workers and officials and those things, it's probably around 24 people. If you figure the officials and people that are coming from the media, you figure you allow one parent from each program to come and take pictures for boosters, things like that. That number ends up being 24. And then you figure, kids on the sideline, coaches, if there's ball boys and ball girls, everybody has to be counted. So there was just no way to, be able to say anybody can come to the game. So the league voted to, just for this fall season, the short season that we're going to have, to not have spectators at sporting events. I think that's what that statement was. I had mentioned before about low risk, medium risk, high risk. I think I even chatted about what that means, but there's some information about that and how they categorized the sports. I just pulled out from the document that came just the fall activities. On the original document, it lays out all sports for each season, but I just pulled out the fall for this. So you can kind of see how that works. The problem with the weightlifting thing is they also made a rule that athletics can't be indoors for the fall. So under normal circumstances, we've had an indoor schedule if it is an inclement weather day or something like that. And so if there is an inclement weather day, then athletics will be canceled that day. Nothing can be indoors. So in terms of weightlifting and conditioning and stuff, we're fortunate that we've acquired over the years. We've started buying like the rubber dumbbells and the rubber plates instead of the cast iron ones. So they'll take some of that stuff outside and use it and things like that. And all the teams have the spray bottles to spray equipment down and do all the things that they're supposed to do in terms of COVID. I think we can keep rolling unless somebody has questions about that. This document kind of dives into things a little deeper. So part of the new requirement for coaches, as you might know, coaches are required to have about 8 or 10 different certifications to be a coach. Things like first aid, CPR, they have to do a concussion course, they have to do a heat acclimatization course, they have to do a fundamentals of coaching course. It's 8 or 10 things. They added this COVID course. So there was this COVID-19 for coaches and administrators course added. And so that's an added thing. All of our coaches have done it. We kind of anticipated that when they came out with it, that we were going to do it. So we had jumped the gun a little bit. And so I had previously gotten all the coaches to, do that training. So they all already had it before it was mandated. It talks there about the 7-on-7 league a little bit. It talks a little bit more about volleyball. These were things that were direct quotes right from the MPA memo that came out. So it shows you there about yellow. It's yellow or red is yellow. It talks about sideline cheering. We were able to continue to do cheering like every other sport, and they'll cheer at some games. And we're trying to account for that in our 100 count as well. So I think we can go on. Because some of the other things we have to do, so for athletics to be successful, other departments have to be successful too. And so part of that includes the trainings that the custodial staff have gone through, impact our programs after school and the facilities that the kids use. Transportation. Transportation has continued to be an ongoing issue and will be in this environment too. For the games that start at 4 o'clock, we're going to have to do like a shuttle bus type of thing. And what we've tried to do with the schedule is we've tried to only have, one event on any particular day that the bus would have to leave right after school. Otherwise, if it was a second event, we tried to schedule that at a later time. The issue with that is some of the schools that we're competing against don't have lights. And so sometimes it meant moving days and things like that. But where there's so few activities going on, it was okay to do. We finished actually the schedule today, as a matter of fact. So Todd has already talked about ventilation. I think that's going to be more of an issue when athletics moves indoors. Obviously, the 2 gyms, we're going to have to run the air exchanger the entire time kids are in the building. So, but Todd talked a little bit about that. Community services has had a crew there. It was actually supposed to have been done in one day, but it's kind of expanded into the whole week. They've basically taken the whole week to do repairs on the turf and sanitize it, and they're not quite finished yet. They left their equipment there. I'm assuming that they'll be done tomorrow, but they're doing that work during the day. So it did impact phys ed classes a little bit, but not that we said that we wouldn't move. It's just their work schedule. They work normal 9 to 5, job. So that's what's happening there. We continue to have kind of these goals and priorities when we went into this year. So those things kind of help ground us a little bit as we made decisions about things and put our plans together. As you know, because I keep referring to it all the time, our webpage, we spent just an enormous amount of time on, especially the COVID link, to ensure that systems were in place for everything. We've had some tests of that system this week, and I'm glad to report that it works exactly how we planned it to work. That didn't come easy. There was some angst with it because we have certain deadlines and certain things have to be done at certain times, and there's reasons for that. And not everybody likes to be held to a deadline, and so there was some anxiety about that, but I think we've worked through that. So, so this kind of talked about what the league has been doing. And so I've been fortunate enough to be part of 3 national groups talking about athletics across the country and preparing for it. And so that's been really helpful to be part of those groups. And then of course, I'm on 2 different, local groups meeting and talking about how we're going to do athletics and those sorts of things. So it does still kind of fetch out this way. You can see that cross country and golf are really the only 2 sports that are looking to have like a normal postseason, if you will. Field hockey is not going to have a regular postseason, and soccer won't, but there is talk about how the schedules work is the schools were broken into small cohort groups. And so we play 8 games. So we play each of our teams twice, and we stay within our cohort group. So if we want to add additional games at the end of the season, or if we wanted to do some kind of unofficial tournament or something, I guess, we would have to do it within our cohort group of teams. And so that's how each sport was set up. They all happen to be Cumberland County schools. So like I said, they had to rework the schedule to do that. They talked about, and you probably read in the newspaper, they talked about what they called a wedge season, which was going to be somewhere between the end of January and into March. So the plan actually is on paper that there will be a football and volleyball season in this wedge months. So they didn't cancel it. What they did was they deferred it. And so they deferred it to this, what they called a wedge season. We were also, however, allowed to continue forward because truth be told, that may not happen. And so that's the plan to try to do it. But if it didn't work, they still wanted kids to have an opportunity to participate in that activity. So that's why they allowed them to continue this fall. So in essence, football and volleyball may end up with 2 seasons, essentially. Albeit not full seasons, but they may end up with 2 seasons. I talked a little bit about the busing. There's a huge issue with officials, which is why games are scheduled certain ways. Because, for example, just recently with soccer, they voted that all the soccer officials had to wear masks the whole time they were officiating. And so that knocked out a lot of officials. Nearly 60%, it was more than 50% of their officials. And so we've had to really look at some creative ways to move games around and not have too many on one day. And so the league really had to work collaboratively on that. So obviously we're going to have cancellations, but I think we have room in the schedule for things. And I think that's it on that one. This was enrollment numbers. I thought I'd just put it in there just to show you that compared to last year for high school, we're only, we have 7 kids less than we did last year. So we're in line with what we did last year. Middle school, it's a little bit higher than that. But we're right in line. Kids still registered and want to do something, and we still have the same numbers that we've normally had. I think where we go from here are, we continue to just do the day-to-day management and deal with any issues that come up. We continue to try to keep families posted about things. We continue to update our FAQ document on the webpage as we get information. We want to keep that updated. We continue to think about middle school. Yesterday, actually last night at the middle school, athletic administrators had a meeting and they voted not to sponsor a middle school fall season this year. So what does that mean for us moving forward? We're going to have to get together and figure out, does that mean that we still do something similar to some of the other sports like conditioning and maybe some internal types of things, and what can we do? I think we have the framework in place because we'd use the same framework as a high school. The problems with middle school are a little different. If a kid doesn't fill out their screening form for the day to be able to participate that day, like a high school kid, you can't just say, you can't participate today, you got to go home now. Because that kid might not have a way to get home right then. So the problems are a little bit different at the middle level. We also have other facility concerns at the middle level. We can't control the fields because they're all open. They're not fenced in. And so if we do something like a scrimmage game, we don't want our relationships with parents to be adversarial, but at the same time, we have to keep within a certain number of people on the facility. It's easier to control when you have fences than it is without fences. And so we have some problems with middle school. We got to kind of work through those, but nothing insurmountable. And we're going to be meeting with the middle school administrators to see, what direction we want to go. But they have officially canceled the middle school athletic season. That just came down last evening. They have not begun discussions about winter. I happen to chair the MPA basketball committee, and we have not even started talking about winter yet. I think they want to get fall underway. My red flag about winter is that if they continue with the same rules, I don't know how you have a winter season if you can't be indoors. So we have some roadblocks we'll have to figure out as things change. And maybe the rules will change, I don't know, but as they stand right now, it will be a challenge. We continue to work with our nurses as things come up, and they've been great about, do we have to make a tweak here or a fix there? And so we've continued to do that in terms of all our safety guidelines we have in place. But to be honest, the kids and the coaches, I think they're so happy to be back that they're doing everything that they're being asked to do. And so that's been really great. We have not had to, get too aggressive about, staying distant from each other and those things. They've been really, really good about following the rules. We have over 320 kids participating in high school fall sports. And we don't have the same supports that we have in school during the day. So it is challenging. It's a lot of work, but so far so good. Maybe you can click on that web link, Diane, I don't know. I'll just maybe click on the COVID page if it loads. So first of all, we have a whole new athletic page that's tied to the program that we use for scheduling called Our School. And the reason why we went with this is because this is also the new platform that the MPA is using. So we're kind of connected to them. But if you go, you can see all the things that we have on the COVID page. But if you scan down to Stay Informed and click on that link, then you can kind of see the progression. When that comes up is we kind of laid it out month by month. If you click on the September 11th one, that was probably the most recent document that came out. And if you scan down that document, just scan way down to one of the individual sports. Yeah, keep rolling. It's a big document. Yeah, any one of those you can stop on. So if you take, can Keep scrolling. So cross country. So how every sport was laid out was the same way in this document. So it really provided great information, I thought. This was sent to all the families that were registered in Family ID for fall sports. And then, of course, we posted on our webpage. But they're all very similar. They lay out what we can do and the rules related to that particular sport. It talks about, the distancing and the face masking and the scheduling. And it also talks in there about facilities and how we handle emergency situations too. We had to kind of rework our emergency plans a little bit because, when we have lightning and things like that, our go-to usually is that we move indoors. And so we've had to kind of rework all the facilities that we use, what the emergency protocols will be. So we've done that, provide that information to our coaches. If you go down just a little bit more, keep right there on that blue, that's also a link to each of the sports bulletins in the MPA so that parents could have linked to those to kind of see what those rules were too. So that would be an example of what an MPA sports bulletin looks like. And it kind of lays out really the rules for that sport. The stuff in red every year is the items new that they've added from the previous year. And that's what each sports committee does at the MPA. So every sport has a MPA sports committee that manages that sport. And so the committee gets together and puts this document together and talks about how the season's going to go and those sorts of things. So I think you can go back to the other document. I know I saw a couple of questions that people had, and one question was about senior nights, and our plan was that right now our plan is that we were going to do basically a senior night week. It's probably going to take 2 weeks though, because of the number of teams we have. So what we're going to do is we'll take a practice slot when that sport is on the turf field, when they have a normal turf field practice time. Then we'll take that turf field sports time and make that a senior activity. And so that would be an opportunity where all the kids from the program would be there. The senior parents could come. We'd have pictures. We'd do the announcing. We'd try to do everything that we normally do at a game, but it would be during a practice time. We talked about doing it like before a game. The trouble is that we don't really have a place for it and still stay within the guidelines. Even if we were to say, okay, we're going to do it at 5 o'clock before the soccer game. So let's go over to Memorial Park and we'll do it there. The issue is because we have a game on the turf field, we have practices over at Memorial Park. So then that would put us over the number. And so we really don't have a place to go. So what we came up with was, well, let's do it over a week or 2 week period of time, however that works out. And we'll call it senior week. We'll make it a fun thing. And we'll do it during their practice slot. And that's the best that I think we can do. One other question I saw was about stipends. And so what we felt was the fairest thing to do with stipends, and Kate Bolton was really helpful with this, is we basically followed what we were supposed to follow, frankly, which is the collective bargaining agreement. In the collective bargaining agreement, there's a rubric to calculate stipends. What we did was we recalculated each stipend using the rubric based on the season that they have in front of them. And so I think later in the board meeting, I think they added that approval of the fall coaches. Those numbers are a result of that recalculation. The process for that recalculation was we created a worksheet in the appendix of the collective bargaining agreement was the scoring rubric to calculate stipends. We made that into a worksheet. We created a Google survey from that. We sent that to each varsity head coach so they could fill it out for themselves. And then I filled out one for each coach too. And then we compared. weird enough, and God honest truth, we didn't tweak anything. Weird enough, they came back really close, like within a 0.5. And so it really worked out that, we were able to go with the ones that I calculated with, and that's what would be in front of you tonight at the board meeting to approve the fall coaches. That's how those stipends were recalculated. We felt that was the fairest way. Coaches had a say in it. They had an opportunity to express what their hours are and quantify those and those sorts of things, all those points in that scoring rubric. We are going to take advantage of that activity, actually, and before the end of this season, have them recalculated if it was a normal year too. And we'll do that this year to take a second look at all of the stipends, as we should, because it's a new contract. I think I'm at the end of what I want to say. So any other questions? Yes.
I do have a couple. One was, what time does the form actually open? The form that they have to sign on every day and say, yes, I don't have any symptoms.
The form's never closed,
Okay.
so they can click on it
Hey,
anytime.
Leanne. Oh, sorry, guys. Leanne, I don't think your microphone is on. So those
It
of us who
is.
aren't in the room can't. Oh,
My
okay.
microphone is on. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. Let audio guys know, the people at home, you're super, super quiet.
I can just restate the question. Leanne asked about the screening form and when the screening form is open. The screening form is not something that's closed. We just ask students to fill it out the day of the activity by 11 a.m. So they can fill it out from 12:01 midnight till 11 a.m. the next day. They have to fill it out, but it's not something that's closed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there? Sure.
So is that an NPA requirement?
Our requirement is that we have to prove that every child completed a screening form. We just, the MPAs. Yeah, we had a requirement that we had to prove that everybody did a screening. The only way to do that is to have them do the screening. So we made it as easy as we could. We put it in a Google form. It follows the state one. I think it's 4 questions, and then it populates a spreadsheet for us. It's been an unbelievable tool for us, especially this week, because I'll be honest, we've had some kids that put yes on there. And when we did further research, when we made the calls and we had our system work the way it should, we discovered that, it was one child was home because she had a headache, and it was other related things. It wasn't a COVID thing, but we've had an opportunity to have our system triggered and it worked.
Given the fact that the parents are not able to attend any of the activities,
Yeah.
is there something separate that is giving authority to the coaches if there was an injury and a child needed medical treatment?
Well, there's nothing extra that has to be given because it's all in the family ID registration. So all of that, the reason why we print emergency cards and have those available is so that if an ambulance shows up and has to treat a kid and the ambulance driver says to us, I don't know what we can do to this kid, we say, you do whatever you need to do. Here's all the information. And so that's why it's critically important when families fill out the information in family ID, they do so accurately. But all the sign-offs are in our family ID registration that allow us to treat students if they get injured.
Mike, I just want to jump in just to test and see. April, can you hear me now?
We're having some
Oh,
audio problems.
I'm sorry, I should have restated the question. The question was, what happens if parents aren't at an event and a child gets injured? It would really be no different than any other event, because we're still going to do the same thing whether the parent's there or not.
Any other questions? Alicia?
You mentioned I guess I missed it, but, are you taking the opportunity to do either touch football or outdoor volleyball?
Well, right now, none of those leagues have started, just like what was on the document. So 7-on-7 hasn't been organized yet. In fact, we offered in Scarborough to help get it organized because we want to get it started and we want to be part of it. So it looks like the Cheverus Athletic Administrator and myself will probably be working collaboratively. Right now, as we speak, I should be at an SMA meeting talking about that. There's a meeting going on right now. So we'll see what comes from that meeting tonight, but there's no league formed yet. There's no games put together yet. And the same thing with volleyball. So we know that there are some schools that want to do it. We're fetching out those schools that want to do it. And then we'll have to sit down collaboratively and figure out, okay, what can we do? When can we do? And put a schedule together. Yep. Everybody's going every day. Nobody's missed a day since Monday.
Yes, ma'am.
For middle school, I heard you say that there's not gonna be was it MPA that they got this?
It's the Southern Maine Middle School Athletic Association. It's made up of about 40 middle schools. Okay, yep, sorry. So she asked what's happening with middle school and who made the decision about the season. It's this people that made the decision about this meeting, the season was the Southern Maine Middle School Athletic Association, I think it's called. It's made up about 40 schools from really all of Southern Maine. You know, like the high school, there's different conferences. There's the SMA, there's a Western Maine Conference. So for example, like Cape Elizabeth, even as close as it is to us, is in another conference called the Western Maine Conference. The leagues were originally designed and put together based on their classification. So when we were a Class B school, we were in another conference, Scarborough was. Scarborough was, I don't think it was the Western Maine Conference back then. Sue might know. I think it was called wasn't it called the and the Campbell Conference back then it was called, when Scarborough was a Class B school. When we moved to Class A, we joined the SMAA. That's how, in high school, that's how the leagues are established based on their classification. In middle school, it's not that way. It's literally all the Southern Maine schools. Lewiston is in it, you know, all the Portland schools, Scarborough. It's about 40 schools. All those athletic administrators had a meeting last night and they voted to not hold the season.
So, okay, so then did you say something like you're still just meeting with the
Yeah, all this came down at 6 o'clock last night. So we're trying to figure out right now, what are we going to do? Are we not going to have a season, or are we going to try to do something? And so I think that those are decisions that we still have to work through.
what are the options that you'll
If we do a season, it's going to be internal, like an intramural type program. That's all we can do. They're not sponsoring a season, so it would be nobody to play.
I think it sounds like we're back. I can hear me.
I can hear you.
So if someone watching could just let us know if they can hear us now. I know everyone's been able to hear Mr. Legage.
No.
I have a
It's a
loud
little
voice,
better,
yeah.
Can you hear us, April?
Can't hear her.
Mm-mm.
Here, you can
Alright,
pass
well,
this
we'll
one
have to
around.
Try to troubleshoot that between now and the start of the 7 o'clock meeting.
Mhm.
Given that they can't hear us, I'm not sure if I can send a note. If they had questions. Kind of thinking like we probably should break and try to fix the sound issues. Mike, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your support.
All right, we're gonna take I guess a break.
So while we're trying to problem solve this, obviously the mics are all still on even though we're not meeting. So just making you aware.
You sound louder now, Diane.
Really?
Yep.
Can you hear it really clearly now?
Yeah,
Much more clearly.
I
Can you
wonder
hear-
if there was something interfering with the microphone over there, the wall mic?
Can you hear me, April?
Yep.
Can you hear
Oh.
me now?
yes.
Yes, except you're echoey, Leanne.
And I don't know why.
Try it again, Leanne.
Can you hear me now? April?
Better. Yep.
Okay. That's a good start. At least I'm being heard.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's not that we couldn't hear you at all. It sounded like your microphones weren't on, and I literally couldn't hear Alicia, which is fun.
That's like your dream come true.
Not at all.
I could hear you all as soon as I came on.
Oh, that's good.
April, good for you.
What are you trying to do? Make a liar out of me?
I'm just saying.
April, did you get highlights in your hair?
No, it's just this flattering bedroom lighting I have going
Ah,
on.
Looks nice.
Just like grays.
Is it we're gonna link it into the newsletter tomorrow? Yep.
Hey. Let's go. I can.
Am I allowed to come talk to you?
I don't see why not, but I'm gonna make the rules, Kate.
There's a lot of things, so fun, which is kind of interesting because I'm gonna be talking about COVID stuff. But, that's curriculum. We got temps. We got,
I did notice that I had to know so that we could segregate the expenses, but I just built it.
Could anyone remote just let me know if this is a good level audio wise, if you're able to hear me?
Sit down to do this.
That's great.
So this is comfortable volume?
Go back through and see the
Yeah.
sections segregated.
Perfect, thanks.
Individual like invoices.
Thank you.
Cool, awesome.
But good point. I will, I'm gonna go get the bottom line off that spreadsheet.
o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and start off with our business agenda for tonight. Can I please have the call to order? Sorry. Good Lord, you'd think this is my first rodeo. Are there any adjustments to tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none. 3.0, public comments. If anyone has any comments that they would like to share tonight, please raise your hand. I'll give it a moment. Excellent. John, I have permitted you to talk. You just need to bring yourself from mute.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone in the administration and the schools, teachers, administrators, and everyone within the school board for what I would call, from our perspective, a safe and successful first week of school. I've had children. My children have, by the way, my name is John Humpage, and I live at 8 Williamsburg Lane here in Scarborough. I've got a daughter in the high school, son in the middle school, and they've been in both the classroom and at home. And overall, it's been going really well. On the first day, there were a few minor glitches where my son didn't get a link to a particular class, but that was quickly resolved and hasn't been repeated. Logistically, the drop-off and the pickup seems to be going smooth. I've been asking my children every day how the classes are going, and they've been saying it's going well, and they feel safe in school and haven't been reporting any problems. Everything that you are doing to try to get our children back to some semblance of a normal lifestyle is working. I've noticed a marked change in my children, their demeanor. Kind of the children I'm used to seeing, are coming back. Everything from interacting with their friends and interacting with the teachers and being challenged at school. And even the little things like the dropping off or the pickup of the meals, being able to order that ahead, those little things are helping. I also, from the athletic standpoint, my daughter was crushed at first when she heard there wasn't a volleyball season, but the school went and bought a volleyball net and made the logistics to try to make something happen. And just a few days ago, they painted lines, out on the grass so they could have an actual real court. And so little things like that are making a difference. And I just want to say thank you, and they're appreciated.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, any other comments? Seeing none. Moving into 4.0 recognition. Chris Rowley, I have brought you in as a panelist. If you wanted to bring yourself from mute, just want to talk a little bit about the very incredible award that you have received. Chris Rowley is one of our PE teachers. He's at Pleasant Hill, and he has been awarded one of 100 grants from the American Heart Association. What an incredible honor. It's a rather large donation. Chris, if you wanted to pop from mute and maybe talk a little bit about what this is and how it came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So after, my students participated in the Kids Heart Challenge, which you might know it as Jump Rope for Heart. It's the same thing where they fundraise money for the American Heart Association. And my students were super motivated. I honestly couldn't even say why or how they were so motivated, but they ended up raising over $6,500 for the American Heart Association. So, and that all kind of ended, or it was, I had sent in all their donations right around the time we had closed schools and everything kind of shut down. We went into quarantine. So that was kind of put on pause, but I received an email from the American Heart Association about this grant. And I was, like everyone else, just kind of seeking for something to do and something to look forward to. So I went ahead, since I had plenty of time, I went ahead and submitted the application, just wrote a short essay and kind of talked about what I would want to do with the grant. And in August, I got the notification that I was a winner. And over the summer, I also participated in like their virtual award ceremony. which it wasn't much, but they like showed our school in a little like slideshow of one of the schools that won the grant. So definitely super excited. And through some thinking, I went ahead and decided instead of purchasing, I kind of wanted to go ahead and make it a bigger project for myself and for my students and for my school. And I'm going to do a little more fundraising and seeking out a little more money to get a traverse climbing wall, which is one of the climbing walls that instead of going up for height with a belt and everything, you're kind of scaling and going across. And so that's in the works right now. So I'm super excited about that. And I can't wait. Hopefully by this school year, we'll have it up in the gym at Pleasant Hill.
Fantastic. That's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Well done. Just out of a point of order, I know that this was not under new business, but do we need to motion to accept the grant from the American Heart Association?
We should do that, yes.
So motion to accept this incredible grant that Chris Rowley has received.
Second?
Okay. And discussion?
Congratulations. Pretty excited for the kids and for you, and reflects so well on the your investment to the students. So thank you for that.
I also could just congratulate him. He's been with us for 2 years now out at Pleasant Hill, and I've had the good fortune to just pop in every so often and see the good work that he's doing as a phys ed teacher. And I think he's very passionate about his work, and I congratulate him for the good work that he's doing.
Any other comments?
I hope you can hear us.
Oh, I was going to ask if there were any other comments. Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Great. Mrs. Durgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos?
Yeah.
Dr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Castellanos?
Yes.
Ms. Layton?
Yes.
Mrs. Seither?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
And Mr. Bennett?
Yes, and thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. 5.0 is an update on our school opening.
So we can go to the next slide. I am so delighted and excited and pleased that we are open. As you know, we opened on September 8th, and it was an exciting time for all the students to begin to think about school, and hopefully they had a wonderful summer. And we're just really excited that the learning can continue and that students can see their buddies and friends and see the teachers and really have a opportunity to come and get back to school and what school is all about. Particularly, you know, the learning is really important, but the social emotional component, particularly at this point in time, I think we need to pay attention to. So charting the course, you know, good planning pays off. I just have to tell you that the people in this organization came together and very much worked to have a very cohesive group of people from the community, 90 members. When you think about 90 members and trying to almost build order and get consensus and to get a plan, it's an enormous task. And this happened over the summer, and we had teachers, staff, parents, community members, medical experts, educators, administrators, and members of the ESEA. And they formed a committee. There's a school transition and reopening redesign task force. And that has really been driving our work this fall. And at times I have to tell you that I was worried because it was so massive and so many people, and would we ever come out with a plan? And it just clicked, it worked. And I think in the long run, we were just so smart to get all the experts together and to really form a plan that's driving our work. So I can't help but express my gratitude to those 90 team members. In addition to that, it's really the work of the people in the schools today, the teachers, the custodians, the cooks, the bus drivers, the administrators, and the list can go on. And those are the people who have taken that plan and they're making it work. And we so much appreciate the community feedback as well. You know, my discussions with my administrators, that the parents are very excited and the students are eager to be back. So it is about an opportunity to, it takes a village. It can't just be one person or just administrators or one component of the community to make this work. We have really worked very hard with our transportation department. They have 23 students on the bus. That has been enormous. And, you know, to be honest with you, we could not do that without the parents driving their students to school. So we appreciate that as well. Our facilities, again, a huge shout out for our custodians all summer. The maintenance crew, just making sure that we have the supplies and materials and the face masks and all that stuff together. It's really been great to see that it has worked well so far. School nutrition program, again, a lot of work going on there. And the good news is that we have free breakfast and lunch for all kids, and that goes until December 30th, 2020. The IT, you know, that's a pretty lean department from my observation, and particularly this year, the pressures that they're faced with has been enormous. And so they have worked many, many hours over and beyond the call of duty, and the work continues to be busy for them. And I just applaud them as well, because I know they know that there will be an end in sight when we won't get so many requests, but they have been inundated with appropriate requests from staff to have the assistance to make sure that the computers are working well. So really, to the entire Scarborough school system community, I thank you for the work that you've done. We've created the conditions for a successful opening. Again, I think the good planning that went into that. The distance learning that is going on in each school has happened. It's going to get even better as we get better with the cameras and the technology. And we respected the valid concerns of individual families and staff. We know certainly going into this that there would be some bumps along the way. And we tried to listen and respond, and we'll continue to do that as well. And lastly, we've identified appropriate curricular in both in-person and remote strategies, leveraging technology where age appropriate. And in the perfect world, if we get this down really well, we'll be able to make sure that our students are in the classroom and the students that are at home can see the same lesson, hear the same lesson, and be together as a classroom. So that's our hope. And again, it's a work in progress. And I'm just flabbergasted. I just can't believe how the open school has gone as well as it has, even though there's always going to be some little potholes along the way. So kudos to everybody. And I just really, I feel very passionate about that, because I'll be honest with you, in August, I was worried. I just knew that there was such an enormous amount of work going into this, and would it come together, you know, because we've not done this before. But you have to believe in your people, and you have to believe in the plan and the work. And I feel very proud at this point in time. Thank you.
Before you move on, I think we had other really good news
Oh,
today.
yeah, great. So, as you know, I have to give the credit to Todd Sousa. He's really been working particularly on the Coronas Relief Fund for the opportunity to have an after-school daycare program. And with Kate Bolton and Diane and myself, we've we collaborated with the town to see if there's a way to put a grant together so that the town can rent the House of Lights building over in Scarborough. And it's a response to the opportunity for students to have after-school care. And we did receive the grant, and we're very excited about that. And I think the next step really is to make sure that we get the place up and running and get the furniture in there and get the word out to the families and communities that this is going to happen. And it was a fast and quick opportunity. It's not like we heard about this 4 months ago. So I would, again, congratulate Todd, particularly, I think, and his office staff really worked with us to make this happen. I think he really spearheaded this. I know he had to convince the council as well to support this work. And I think, from my perspective, I think this is going to not only be a great opportunity for our community, but I think there could be some opportunity to come out with some extra money at the end if it goes well. So I know Kate and Diane have been behind that scene as well, working on that. And it's been a good collaborative effort, and we'll keep you posted as it continues.
Fantastic. All right. Kate? Nick, I noticed that your hand is up. Do you want to ask a question for the first part?
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment on Sandy's update about the school opening, if I could. So I assume that means I can, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I just wanted to say really quickly that tonight's, what we heard in public comment tonight was really refreshing. I know it's been a really stressful summer, and in a lot of ways, this planning for 2020, 2021 began before school even got out in June. And so I just wanted to take a moment because we've talked a lot about all the different people of our members of our community, our parents, our teachers, our educational professionals, our leaders, doctors, people that came together to work on this plan over the summer. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge kind of a little bit of the unsung heroes, and that is our leadership from across the district, because in a lot of ways it would have been so much easier to sit down in a dark room for a week in June and come up with a plan on how to reopen school. But instead, you opened that process to this entire community, and we had triple-digit number of people bringing in all these different opinions. And the part of this that's really amazing to me when I step back and think about it is that the leaders from around our district, the leaders at every level, took all that information and made it into a cohesive plan that was flexible, that had direction, but also was able to yield some give in this changing situation. And so my mentor back in graduate school, all I'll say is this: he used to tell me, he said, you know a good educational leader by someone who tirelessly and selflessly cultivates change and transformation in others, but takes none of the credit. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize all the hard work that our leaders from the very top all the way through all of our schools, our lead teachers, that everybody took that information from the experts in our community and made this opening possible and made the feedback we received tonight possible. So I just want to say thank you, because it's been a long road. And to hear that after the first couple of weeks of school was really rewarding as a board member, and I hope you see it as rewarding too.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
Kate?
Hi, I'm a little hesitant to get into this mic. Is it on?
I don't think so. I'm just going to ask a quick question for the folks that are remote. If you were able to hear Kate when she was just talking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I'm coming across and Leanne's coming across too, which is a great triumph, right?
This is like a whole new world.
All right. Well, you guys out there, let us know if we're fading in and out or anything. I was asked to come up with a little bit of a follow-up to last meeting's presentation on the Coronavirus Relief Fund. I think if you all looked back at the slide deck, that time I was just outlining basically what the funds were and where they came from and the fact that we had applied for them and what the different categories of spending, allowable spending were in the fund. So tonight, at the risk of putting 50 new slides out and driving you all crazy, I do have a little bit of a recap on the first slide of where the funds came from. And I have a little bit of new information there, as Sandy just mentioned, between the last time we spoke and this evening. Some new funds were released for day programming. You heard about that at the last meeting with Todd Souza's presentation. We applied for it and we were approved today via an email. It's an informal approval. We'll get the real grant notice coming up, but we're pretty excited about that. Frankly, Todd and I were, after our conversation with DOE, where we were thinking that we probably weren't going to get this money because of some of the questions that they asked, but they were very thoughtful and careful with us, and they really wanted to understand our plans and how we were trying to make this work for our community. And the end result is that they are helping to support us. So that's really exciting. Thanks, Diane. So I've linked into this slideshow at the top there where it says CRF K-12 grant. I've linked in a much more extensive document, again, trying not to overburden you with a million slides and a million details, but I do know that people are really interested in where $2 million is going, right? And this is talking in this case about the K-12 grant, which is the largest one. Oh, and I should take one step back and say that the adult ed grant was also approved. You saw that on the last slide. It's $8,500. And we've got a great plan for that, which involves technology. We're going pretty much 100% for technology equipment with those grant funds. Because our adult education program at the moment is pretty much remote. The only folks that are doing hands-on learning in adult education are folks who are doing CNA and medical clinicals. But apart from that, we've got a lot of learners out there who still need our help with workforce programming, with literacy, ELL, English language learners programs. And so what we're purposing to do with that money is to buy devices that we can now loan out to folks. So if they don't have their own laptop, they can still participate in a class. So that's pretty much the nature of that, where those grant funds are going to be going. Once this slide deck is posted, I think people from the audience will be able to click in on the link, but I'll just run down through the various categories. And Sarah just asked me a pointed question, which was, what's the total? Which I had to go back and look up because I had everything in bits and pieces. So far, we were given a grant of $2.1 million. So far, as of right now, we've spent or committed $1.25 million of that. So we're about a little over the halfway mark in spending. Remember that these grant funds were designed to help school districts reopen schools safely. So Sandy mentioned a really short timeline on the daycare grant. Really short timeline on this grant as well. It was on July 17th that the state said, hey, you got $2 million and you have to spend it right now. So let us know what you want to do. And business managers across the state went, we're not really used to this kind of wild behavior with money. We're not sure we can do this. And yet we did. And so we identified all those categories that you saw the last time. And so now I'm going to run through those really quickly and just let you know where we're at with each one. And if you click into the link, a handful of handouts have gone out here, but if you click into the link, you can see much more specifically some bullet points under each section about where exactly that money is going. So I'll start with transportation. We put in a grant for passenger vans. And you'll see when you look at the LinkedIn document that we talk about why we're doing that in each category. Well, what's the purpose? What is it going to help us do? In this case, passenger vans are going to give us a lot of flexibility in terms of social distancing, putting small groups of children on one vehicle. It also helps us out that in that passenger van is just a Dodge Caravan like mom and dad drive, and it doesn't require a CDL license or bus driver's license. So again, we have more flexibility in who can drive those vehicles. So far, we have found, I say we, I shouldn't take credit at all. It's Ed Alden who runs the vehicle maintenance program over at Public Works, who is my best friend, and he has been sourcing used, lightly used Dodge Caravans. So far, we've bought 3 of them, picked up 2 and outfitted them, and we've got one that's coming in this week. And depending on how our budget works, we're going to try to get either 2 more or maybe 1 more, depending on the prices, but the prices have been really good. So that's a simple one. Facilities modifications. The next 2 categories, facilities modifications and then material and supplies, kind of cross over each other a little bit. But modifications is more for larger scale, more expensive changes to your facilities to allow certain things to happen. So you can see in my little bullet points there, we focused on the health clinics, and you've heard about how there now needs to be a respiratory clinic and the regular clinic for students who have ordinary medical needs. HVAC consulting, we brought a firm in that we use for air quality control and guidance to make sure that we were doing everything right in that area. Outdoor break areas. I don't know if anybody's seen the really cool tents that are around. We've got tents deployed out there. It actually looks like we're having a lot of weddings, which is really fun. I'm not sure that's age appropriate, but they're really beautiful tents. And I was down at the middle school this morning and the kids were out there taking a mass break and they're hanging out in the tent. It's just really nice. Moving and storage of furnishings. So we had a really exciting weekend where it was basically like we took everything out of one building and moved it to the next. Kind of crazy stuff, but we took a lot of desks from Wentworth School, we spread them out. So their rooms were emptier, high school as well. And then we took those desks down to the K2s and we took the tables out of the K2s because kids are used to clustering around, 4 or 5 kids to a table. And so now we have individual student desks so they can space them out better. So we did moving and storage, packed up a bunch of stuff, packed up what I call the fluffy bunnies at K2 because you can't sanitize a fluffy bunny. So, beanbag chairs, soft chairs, area rugs, that kind of stuff. And then the other piece was reworking some of the traffic flow, which you've heard a lot about in terms of vehicles coming in and out, buses going in different directions, opening different doors, putting card readers on different doors so that people can make different pathways into the buildings. All right, that's plenty about that. Material and supplies, that's my favorite category. I am now the PPE princess. Diane is the PPE queen. PPE stands for personal protective equipment, if you are not in the royal family yet. And so we've been spending an awful lot of time taking masks from one place and putting them into other places and building little bags and shields and gloves and gowns. And oh my goodness, it's so exciting. I never knew I would be doing that. Plexiglass dividers. So these dividers are the tabletop ones that look kind of like what you guys have right here. So we've had 2 different things going on. One is the Respara piece that you're going to hear about later tonight, where they provided the plexiglass barriers that are going in front of the public areas. So when you go into school offices or into the libraries where there's a lot of commerce going on, they provided those. But we also wanted to have them for the students who are sitting at a table together, and we could divide a table in the cafeteria, or we could divide a space between a teacher and students so the teacher could be at their desk and still communicate with a student but have a barrier there. Sanitizing equipment. A lot of drama around whether we could use the electrostatic sprayers, but we purchased a lot of those and they're really cool because they lay down a very, very fine mist of sanitizing solution, which is non-toxic, but it doesn't require you to walk around and buff every surface with a cloth. You can lay that spray down and you can consider a large area to have been effectively sanitized. I say there's drama around that because we had a little trouble with the state telling us that we couldn't use that equipment after every school district in the state purchased them, because you have to have a pesticide applicator's license to do so, even though we weren't using pesticide. Very convoluted statutory requirement, which has since been ironed out. And thanks to the good writing of Todd Jepson, who has created some very eloquent and well-written pleas to state statutory regulatory commissions. He and his colleagues have ironed that out. And so now with a certain amount of training, which we obviously want, we're allowed to use that equipment. Signage means things like those little floor dots and arrows and go this way, go that way, and tape and decals and signs on the wall that say wash your hands. All of that stuff is everywhere and costs money. And storage containers for student belongings, that's been kind of a neat thing because we're trying to be really careful about intermingling stuff that belongs to kids and sharing stuff that belongs to kids. So we've come up, teachers have come up with a lot of innovative ideas of, how to have your own pencil case, how to have your own little Sterilite box that has all of your equipment that you need during the school day. Particularly at K-5, a lot of manipulative stuff going on in the classroom, and not so much in the way of carry-alls. The older kids tend to have their own backpack and they tend to carry their own stuff around more. So a lot of money has gone into that, and we've nickeled our dime and dimed our way to $164,000 so far, and lots of bills yet to pay. Nutrition services. We've purchased software for remote ordering, which is working out really well so far. And portable food service is sort of a catch-all phrase. What that means is warming stations that are on wheels and cooling stations that are on wheels. Packaging that will allow our school nutrition department to be able to take a meal from one place to another and deliver it into a classroom, or deliver it into the gym, or deliver it into wherever the students are working, or are eating. And also prep it and prepare it to take home. Because I think you heard earlier that a student who has a regular hybrid schedule is going to be in school 2 days and at home 3 days. So we can still provide a family with meals for those 3 days when the child is at home. But that means we have to pack it to take home. We're not standing at the big tray and scooping out the mac and cheese right now. Additional staff hours. This is where we put the biggest chunk of our budget for the K-12 grant. And what we've spent or allocated to date is, you'll see in the detail, it's really about some of the supplemental subs and extra folks that we've brought into the district to help us cover in the classroom in this new environment where some of our teachers are working remotely and some of our students are working remotely. And as I said, there's more detail in the LinkedIn document. But right now we have 14 supplemental substitutes, and their job is to be in school on campus and co-teach with a teacher who, for their own reasons, has to work from home. And these are ADA accommodations in most cases. And, of course, the COVID environment, I could write you a whole nother story about that, that part of my life. The HR impacts of the COVID pandemic environment. But in this case, we've placed a lot of extra time, money for time, so that we can have enough staff to come on board and help us out, to keep things moving forward, to take care of kids who are more spread out, to take care of kids who are doing activities in a different way. We've only committed about a third of the money so far, and we may actually end up moving some of this money to technology. We're still balancing that in our minds as we're developing our understanding of what we actually need to run things on campus. I'll say two things about that. One is that our administrators are amazing and they make something out of nothing every day. So they've been doing a lot of that to figure out how to make this all work. And then the other thing is just the really short span of time between when we got the money and when we had to think about how we were going to use it. So I know for a fact that some money is probably going to get shifted to technology only because We're coming up to the top of our technology budget, and there were some things that we didn't have the time to do before school started that we were planning to spend money on in terms of training hours. Professional development, again, staff having the opportunity to learn new things has to be COVID related. It's not just, our normal curriculum meetings or our normal learning, adult learning that we're doing. So far, we've spent some money on a really amazing workbook called Distance Learning. That's just like a super resource for folks who are trying to learn effective teaching methods for not being in the same room with their students. And we've also spent some time on staff professional development, groups getting together and working on curriculum. So there's some payroll time in there, and there will be some more of that as well. And technology. So remote services and software are things like Zoom and ProAV setting up this room for us so that we can actually have these great conversations all together, not together. But all the remote services, Wi-Fi, hotspots, and some things like that. Not a huge amount going into that. Most of the money that we're spending is going into the live streaming equipment and the staff and student devices. So we've got extra devices for supplemental staff that we weren't expecting to have. Remembering that K2 Chromebooks or K5 Chromebooks, even though they were issued on a one-to-one basis, they weren't issued originally to be taken home. The K2s in Wentworth School, they stayed in carts at school. So now we have to think about things like bags and chargers and earbuds and things for those children who weren't necessarily going to use those devices. Even though they had a device available to them, they weren't going to use it in the take-home way. The live streaming equipment, we've heard a lot about that from Dawn and from others. And we've had a little bit of a frustration that the shipping times have been so long, but it turns out that the entire world wants the same things we want right now. I don't know if you've all been ordering from Amazon, but suddenly Amazon is not next day anymore. And that's extremely true of technology when it comes to student type devices or school related devices. The supply chain is a little twisted right at the moment, but it's all ordered and it's all coming. So in this category, we've actually spent pretty much all of our money. And so again, we've got some more ideas of things that we can do to be supportive to our teachers and to provide the best possible remote learning opportunities for our kids. So again, we may do a little shifting to take from the staff piece into the technology piece. So the next steps, we need to let DOE know on September 30, which as you may notice is very close, our final grant numbers. So right now we've given them our grant numbers. We've told them what we want to spend in each of these categories. And on September 30, we can say, actually, no, we'd rather shift a little bit from here to there. The bottom line number is still the same. One of the business managers on the last meeting I was on said, well, if I spend more than my allocation, is that okay? Because there's a rule that you can switch 10% from one category to another. And they're like, no, you just can't have 10% more. You have to trade it. It's a nice try though. So we're going to do some trading. And then Department of Ed, remembering that this is federal money, it's actually not even US Ed money, not the Education Department of the federal government, it's the US Treasury that's giving the states this money. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Whenever you get federal money, you have to have tons of documentation and tons of good reporting so that they know you're doing a good job with their tax dollars. So that will start. And then the thing that's driving us all a little crazy is that all of the funds in this particular grant must be spent and the material must be in hand and in use by December 30. So you can't prepay for a subscription that's going to go into January. You can only have the part of the subscription that goes to December 30. You can't hire a teacher for the year. You can only pay them, well, you can, but then you have to come up with another way to pay them from January to June. So that's been a little bit of heartburn, but that's why we've been focusing on the kinds of things that we have been focusing on, where we can have product, services, training, work done in hand and accountable by December 30. Is that enough words? All words and no numbers. Did you notice that?
That was really good.
The numbers are in the handout.
I do have a question.
Yes.
When you were talking about the technology and how everybody wants it all at the same time, what would happen if technology wasn't in by 12:30? Is there any, do we just have to forego it?
I'll answer that by saying that it's supposed to be here in the next 2 weeks, so we don't think that's going to be an issue. But yeah, I think that we would have trouble with the feds if we said, oh, you know what, the shipment didn't roll in until January 3rd, and we didn't actually have it in hand. I think that, what I'm hearing is that they're going to be pretty stringent about that requirement, that it needs to be in use. One of the reasons why we didn't go out and buy a bus is that it's hard to get a bus built and back in your dooryard by December 30 if you order it late in the year. So there are some things where we've said, well, we could do that, but we're really not confident that we're going to have that product or that service available to us in time.
Thank you. Any questions for Kate? All right.
I either put you to sleep or
No, this was really good.
knocked it out of the park.
This was actually incredible. Hillary does have a question for you. And Hillary, just need to take yourself off mute.
I was just wondering, Kate, you said we had spent about, I think you said 1.25 out of 2 million. So do those categories that you presented us with, do they all have more money available in them? Like, have you budgeted for more in each of those categories to get up to the 2 million?
Yes, each of them has a budget that will get us to the 2 million all told. The only one that's really almost 100% spent is the technology, because we've had orders out for so long. And because that was the one area that we focused on, getting those orders out early. But we're continuing to purchase sanitation supplies. We're continuing to purchase personal protective equipment, PPE. We're continuing to purchase student supplies and storage supplies and coming up with cool ideas. So we have the allocation in the budget for each of those sections, and you'll see when you look at the detail that there's a budget for each category. And we have a pretty good sense of where that money is going to go in each category, the remaining money.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Kate, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
April has a question, Leanne.
Oh, sorry, your hand had.
You just have to wait for me to go.
Coming up.
Then it'll work. Hey.
No, that's okay. I couldn't get my blue hand up. Kate, do we have money budgeted, and I'm sure you've thought about all of this, for how to support some of these extra things after December 30th, 2020? Like, for example, if we have additional buses, or not buses, but these minivans, do we have money budgeted to keep them on the road? Or if we have all of this additional tech, do we have money budgeted to continue to support these pieces after this federal funding is no longer available to us?
Yeah, it's definitely a big piece of the question, a big piece of the puzzle. One of the things that we thought about is how to use the money that's in our operating budget that has been designated for COVID expenses. Obviously, some of that has already been spent, but some of that we're saying, okay, well, let's use that January to June. There's also a little bit of money, $106,000 from the original CARES Act grant that we got called ESSER, that also has a flexible timeline for spending. And as far as some of the maintenance pieces on these items, you mentioned the vehicles. Our vehicle maintenance budget should be robust enough to take care of keeping those vans safely on the road. We have enough money in our fuel budget for that. And bearing in mind that in some cases, running a van is going to be an alternative to running a larger bus. That's not too much of a worry for me. In terms of maintaining the technology, we definitely have some concerns about our tech staff. They are definitely out straight right now, and Sandy made reference to that earlier. And we're trying to see whether there's a way that we can wiggle some help for them on the personnel side, because they did lose a field tech in our budget process this past year, and then immediately turned around and went into a fully remote environment, and things are a little different for them than what they expected this year to look like. So that's definitely something we're taking a look at. But again, it would be a situation where we would be finding funds from another place that we're not spending them or choosing not to. So I don't have any big worries about carrying on in the new year. There's also a big fat rumor floating around that we are going to get some more money from the state. I think the worry is, what's the timeline for spending it? Because if it has the same December 30 timeline, it's kind of pointless, in my opinion.
Thank you, Kate.
Should I do this?
Let's see, I'm going to give it just one more second to see if there's any last questions.
I have all night.
I think you're safe.
Okay. Well, I'm right over here.
Okay. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay. Moving into new business, 6.1, motion to accept the meeting minutes of the July 30th, 2020 meeting as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And then, any discussion? You can go straight to vote.
Mrs. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
6.2 are appointments. 6.2.1 are the high school fall coaches. And Mike had discussed this during his workshop. So the motion is to accept the stipend contracts for the 2020 fall season for the high school as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Ready to vote?
Ms. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
And then the last item tonight, which is 6.3, it's Main Properties LLC donation. Kate talked about this a little bit during her presentation. Sandy also talked about this. Huge thank yous to Main Properties, Risbara Company. They have donated $25,000 in labor and materials to the Scarborough Public Schools for all 6 buildings to safely welcome the students back. I am not going to read the very large press release that goes with this, but I cannot say thank you enough. This is an incredibly generous donation from a great partner in the town. So thank you to Main Properties. And the motion is to accept the $25,000 grant as given.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion?
This is the second donation we've received from them in the last month.
Yes.
So the last one was like, what, $1,000 a month or something?
Mhm,
So
for the backpacks.
incredibly appreciative.
Really appreciative. Okay, believe we can move to vote.
Ms. Durgan,
Yes, with thanks.
Mrs. Giftos,
Yes, and thank you.
Dr. Gill,
Yes, and thank you.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes, and thank you.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
I think she said yes. You're muted.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes, thank you. And just for the record, April, if you could pop off mute.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Before I go into the last motion of the night, just a reminder that this is the last meeting in Chambers until November. They are turning chambers into absentee voting or early voting, however you wish to refer to it. So we will be 100% remote for the month of October. That said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Durgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Giptos,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Castellanos,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
and Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.